All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live stream. Today's topic was voted on by my patrons on Patreon, and we are going to be talking about the question, is paganism right for you? So for those watching on YouTube, I have a quick thing that I need to say. I am doing this in a different format. As you can tell, I have a PowerPoint here. This is to help me with not losing my train of thought, but also maybe it'll be helpful for you. So what this means for the live is that right now I can't see the chat. So any questions that you're asking or any comments, those I'll have to check for those at the end of the live stream. I'm gonna pop over really quick just to make sure that you can hear me okay. Is it okay? Can you hear me all right? I was trying a new thing with my microphone and I did an audio test and it worked for my audio test, but I don't know about if it's working for the live stream. So please let me know if you can hear me. Hello, Renee. Awesome. Okay, yes, you can hear me. Perfect. Then we will continue on. As I said, I have this new format. Hopefully it's not too distracting for you, but also hopefully it helps keep me on track with my notes and what I want to talk about. But the next thing that I have to say is that there is a link in the description if you haven't signed up to watch or not watch, be part of the Lunasa hangout that I have scheduled for Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. The link in the description is just so that you can submit your email address so that I know who to send the invite link to. That way we're not spammed with random people who are coming into our hangout that have no business being there. So check the link in the description box below for that. If you're watching this video after then, the link will not work. Actually, you know what? It probably won't even be there anymore. If you want to be notified of future hangouts, make sure that you sign up for my newsletter on my website because I will be sending notifications out that way. I do plan on doing more if this Lunasa one goes well. And yeah, so make sure you sign up for my newsletter at my website, roundthecauldron.com. Moving on. I forgot the slide here, but I do need to give a shout out to my patrons on Patreon. Thank you so much for all of your support. You guys are amazing and wonderful, and I really just appreciate everything that you guys do for me. So thank you, Jess, Rose, Renee, Holly, Blue, and Hillary. Thank you so much. If you want to help support Round the Cauldron, you can do so at patreon.com/roundthecauldron for as little as $1 a month and get patron exclusive content. Some other announcements that I have are the giveaway. Technically, the form is already open for those watching on YouTube. You can submit your entry. There is a link in the description below. It doesn't officially start until August 1st, but with the way I do my live streams and then the way the podcast comes out, it's kind of weird. But it is only going to be one entry per person, so it's okay that it's open a little early. It will run the entire month of August, so it won't be over until obviously the end of August. I will be giving away something from my shop. The winner will get to choose whatever you want, and or something from my shop, or a book of your choice, no more than $30 at this point. So the winner will get to choose. Make sure that you go to the link in the description. Podcast listeners, the link will be in the show notes already. And go ahead and enter the giveaway. I'm excited to see who wins. And this giveaway is for hitting 500 subscribers. I haven't hit 1,000 subscribers quite yet. That's okay. So my next giveaway will happen when I hit 1,000 subscribers. Oh, that's it. That's the announcement. So we can continue. As I said before, this topic is one that was decided on Patreon. We are going to be talking about deciding if paganism is right for you. And there are a few different things that I want to cover first. Obviously, the first thing that I need to cover is the basics. What is paganism? For some of you, this might be a refresher, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with refreshing your memory on what paganism is and what it isn't. But after we touch on the basics, I want to go over 10 questions that I came up with that I think you should ask yourself if you're considering any form of paganism. So, when we talk about what paganism is, what we see a lot of times is people are saying paganism is an earth-centered religion, it's earth-based, it's nature-based. But that's not always true. Not every pagan religion is nature-based. There are some pagans out there who don't care, who, nature doesn't play a large role in their paganism. Now, paganism is separate from witchcraft. So today we are only talking about paganism, which is the religious aspect of faith. Okay? So the word pagan comes from the Latin word paganus, which I have no idea if I'm saying that right, but it means villager or rustic. But the Roman use of this word actually meant civilian or incompetent soldier, which I just find really funny. But knowing the etymology, knowing where the word comes from, is important when we begin talking about what the word pagan means today. So, when we talk about that, we need to understand that Christianization happened in the big cities first. So, the word pagan was ascribed to those who lived on the outskirts of cities or in rural areas. And those people weren't Christianized at the same time as everyone else. So, the word pagan became synonymous with someone that practices a form of polytheism. Um, Today, though, the word pagan generally just means someone who doesn't practice an Abrahamic faith like Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, Islam, etc. Now, some examples of modern paganism are going to be Irish paganism, obviously, Asatru, I think I'm saying that right, which is following the Norse deities, Druidry, Wicca, Hellenismos or Hellenic paganism, which would be those that follow the Greek pantheon either in a reconstructionist or a revisionist manner. And I think Satanism is also classified as a pagan religion since it's not technically Abrahamic. It doesn't have anything to do with Christianity. Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. That's just something that I thought was right. It makes sense in my own brain. Okay, so deciding if paganism is right for you is a very personal decision. It's a very personal choice that you have to weigh a lot of different options. And it's funny because you might not even realize that you're thinking about these things. You might not even realize going into it that maybe it's not right for you. So if you're seriously considering paganism, then these are the types of questions that I feel like you should ask yourself. The first question is going to be, why paganism? Okay, why are you drawn to it? Why do you want to be a pagan? There are good reasons and there are bad reasons. So a good reason would be that something in your heart is calling to you to explore paganism. Something is calling you to explore different pantheons of gods and goddesses and other beings. A bad reason to get into paganism is out of spite because maybe your parents or your family will hate it and you just want to do it just to get under their skin. Okay, that's a really bad reason to look into being a pagan. So, question number one, why do you want to be pagan? The next question that I think is important is to ask yourself what you think you already know about paganism. Because paganism is an umbrella of many, many, many different faiths and religious beliefs. There is not just one type of paganism. So this is something important for you to realize if you're just coming to paganism, or if you're refreshing your memory and just going through and doing some shadow work maybe. But what do you think you already know? Do you have any biases or prejudice or preconceived notions about what it means to be pagan? Do you think that all pagans have their own temple, or all pagans have their own altar and spend 10 hours a day praying to their gods? Or do you believe that all pagans do is LARP, which I've seen that argument made before. If you don't know what LARP is, it's LARP. It stands for live action role play. Some people think that pagans are just going through the motions and pretending, essentially, to be pagan and believe in the gods that they believe in. So, question number two, ask yourself what you think you already know about paganism. The next question is, are you willing to be your own teacher? 9 times out of 10, you're not going to find a mentor. You're not going to find a teacher. You're not going to have the information spoon-fed to you. And if you do find someone online or in person who is willing to teach you, you still have to put in your own work. You know, like me, for example, I'm here on YouTube, I'm here on the podcast, I have my website. I share information that I know about. Sorry. She got itchy. I share information that I know about, but I will never say that I'm 100% right all the time. You have to be willing to go out and do your own research. You have to read books and look for sources and essentially teach yourself, especially if you're just getting started, because there is a period of discernment where, you know, maybe you're researching online and you find something and the information seems great, but maybe in hindsight, 5 years from now, you look back at that same information and it's actually wrong, or it's maybe sugar coated a little bit. So you have to be willing to be your own teacher and be your own advocate. Go out there and figure out what it is that you're interested in, why you're interested in it, and figure out what sources you can use for accurate information. Question number 4 is, are you willing to admit when you're wrong or when you've made a mistake? This is a big one, in my opinion, because we see it a lot, even outside of the pagan community. There are adults out there who will refuse to admit when they're wrong, or who will refuse to admit their mistakes, or refuse to take responsibility for something that they did that was maybe a little messed up. I think it's important as a pagan, as a person, when you're going and learning and maybe starting your practice, doing your devotions and your offerings, and maybe you misspoke, or maybe you did something incorrectly. I think it's really important to be able to admit when you're wrong, admit when you've made a mistake. Because if we don't make mistakes, we don't really have an opportunity to grow. And if you don't admit when you make a mistake, then you will definitely hinder your growth and hinder your education and research into paganism. It's it's just a huge hindrance all around. Question number 5 is, are you willing to put in the work? This goes along the same lines of, are you ready to be your own teacher and will you admit when you're wrong? Paganism is work. It's not like Christianity where you can be baptized and you can, you mess up and you say your Hail Marys and you ask for forgiveness and you're forgiven and everything is fine. It's not like going to church on Sundays or going to church on special occasions and listening and sitting and listening to the pastor or preacher. Paganism isn't like that. And the reason it's not like that is because we're not organized anymore. Paganism, most branches of paganism haven't been quote unquote organized for a really long time. We don't have a central governing body. We don't have someone who is telling us how to be a pagan. Like when you go to church, they explain to you how to be a Christian. Basically, you read the Bible and you say your prayers and you ask for forgiveness when you sin. We don't have that in paganism. So you have to be willing to put in the work to figure out the practice that works for you. And whether you're going to do it in a reconstructionist manner, where you are essentially trying to build up your paganism as close as possible to how it would have been practiced many, many years ago, or a modern revisionist, which, if I'm remembering correctly, is you're building a practice close to how it would have been done, but in a more modern sense. Um, but it takes work, and you have to be willing to put in that work, or you're just going to be stagnant and you're not really going to move forward or grow at all. The next question that comes along with that is, are you ready to put in the work? Because you can be totally willing to do it, totally gung-ho, like, yes, let's go, I'm ready, I want to learn all the things, I want to do my offerings, I want to talk to the gods, I want to, live my best pagan life. But you can, sorry. But you can be in a spot where you're 100% willing, but you are 0% ready. There's a lot that goes into being ready to explore this, in my opinion. And for me, oh my goodness, she's like a child that's trying to get comfortable in her little tube thing. I don't know if you can hear her or not. But there's a difference between being willing and being ready. For me, it took a lot for me to admit that I wasn't ready when I first started this, when I first started my paganism. But that didn't stop me from doing my education and putting in the work. But if you're not in the right mental space to put in all of the work, if you are easily overwhelmed, or if you get information overload, you might just have to back off and take it slow. This goes back to knowing your patterns and knowing how you work best. So only you can answer the question of whether or not you're ready to put the work in for paganism. The next couple of questions deal with the educational aspect of paganism. Because, as I said, we don't have a governing body. We don't have sacred books like the Bible or the Quran. So, question number 7 is, how are your critical thinking skills? And this is an important question because it goes back to the idea of discernment. You need to be able to think critically about the things that you read online about religion and spirituality and faith. There are some people out there who make a living giving incorrect information. So, critical thinking skills are something that can be honed. They are something that you can work on. It just takes practice and it does take effort. If it's not something that you're used to and it's not something that you've ever done before, I need to get her a quieter bed. Um, but it's important to think critically about the information that you're taking in because there is, okay, I'll use an example in Irish folklore about the fair folk, the good neighbors, the fae, the fairies. There was a book written that I haven't read that was supposedly taking information from Irish lore and turning it around and making fairies seem very Tinkerbell-ish, okay? And putting it out there as lore, as mythology and part of the stories of the Fae. However, if you know anything about the Fae and Irish mythology and Irish folklore, you would know that the Fae are not beings that you trifle with. The Fae are not Tinkerbell-style fairies that are all cute and glittery and need humans to protect them. That is the furthest thing from the truth. But if you don't have critical thinking skills and, like the next question, how are your research skills? You might take the information from that book as fact. And that is when this misinformation cycle just continues to go on and on and on because one person reads something from one book and it's just really bad information, and then they turn around and they just spread that information elsewhere, and more people are picking up on that and spreading it around, and then we just have a whole group of people who believe that the Irish fair folk are these teeny cute little things that you can play with. So, ask yourself how your critical thinking skills are and ask yourself how your research skills are. These are things that can be made better. These are things that just take practice, and they're equally as important as doing your devotionals and giving your offerings in paganism. I had at one point planned to do a series, like a video series on how I do my research, but I don't know what happened to that idea. So if that's something that you're interested in and you would like to see from me, let me know. If you're watching live, put it in the comments. If you're listening to the podcast, feel free to reach out to me and just let me know if that's something that you would be interested in, because research is something that I am very passionate about, especially doing proper research and looking for the proper primary sources. The next question is, are you a minor with non-pagan guardians? This question might seem to come out of left field for some of you. Most of you, I'm assuming, are not minors, but you need to ask yourself if you're a minor with non-pagan parents. And the reason for this is because you can get yourself into a sticky situation by practicing paganism when your parents don't approve. And if you reach out to someone, they probably aren't going to teach you because you're a minor. That doesn't mean you can't do your own research and read the books and find the information online from the free resources, but you will have to use some discernment if you are a minor with non-pagan parents. This will be a very personal thing, and if only you can decide if your parents or guardians will approve or won't approve, basically. And if they don't approve and they tell you that you can't be a pagan, it's hard for me to decide or to give advice on this, because part of me, the teenage part of me that did it anyways when I was a kid, says, do what you want. It's, believe what you want. But then the parent part of me says, no, you should probably listen to your parents. They probably have good reason. But I'm also not your average parent, and my daughter is basically free to make her own decisions. So this is a question that you really need to ask yourself and consider if practicing paganism or even researching it or reading about it would be a good idea for you or even be safe. So, if you're a minor with non-pagan parents or guardians, please think really hard about this, and if you can, have that discussion with your parents or your guardians, whoever watches over you, and discuss it with them. Tell them what you want, tell them why, tell them what you believe, and have it as an open ended conversation. Because if they've never heard of paganism, or if their only exposure to paganism is the Satanists who are, taking their statues around in places where there are statues of the Ten Commandments or whatever, or if their only exposure to something that has to do with the occult or the quote unquote fringe ideas of religion is the craft, then they're going to need some education too. And at this point, it would be up to you first to broach the subject and talk to your parents or guardians about paganism. But ultimately, you need to make the decision that is right and safe for you in that moment. The last question is kind of a question, but it's the realization that paganism doesn't have an ending. And are you okay with that? What I mean by there's no ending is you will never stop learning. There will always be something that you don't know. There will always be those moments where someone else knows more than you do. And there will always be those moments where you might mess up, or you might forget an offering, or you might goof something up. You need to be okay with the fact that paganism is not about the ending. We don't have, well, I can't say we. Most paganism doesn't have your typical, happy ending that you think of in Christianity. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, there is no end goal in paganism. It just is. And as soon as you realize that, you might be like, oh my gosh, then what's the point? If that's your thought, then I want you to reevaluate why you want to be a pagan. Because there is no heaven. There is no eternal life. There is no freedom from sin. Have all of those Christian concepts. Paganism isn't like that. Now there are some different types of paganism where there are those end goals, like Valhalla and Helheim in the Norse pantheon. But I don't know enough about that to speak on that, so I'm not even going to touch that subject. But normally, there is no ending. You're always going to be learning. There's always going to be something that you don't know, and you need to be okay with that. So, I hope I didn't make this sound too scary because it's not. But I'm the kind of person that comes into something new asking myself questions like this. And I don't know if it's just because of the way I think or if it is part of the way I was raised. I don't know. But whenever I'm approaching a new subject or a new topic or something that I want to do, I ask myself these kinds of questions. So I feel like these questions would be super helpful for anyone who is just now looking into paganism, who has never heard of paganism. And it could even be helpful for those of us that have been pagan for a while to really reevaluate where we stand in our beliefs, where we stand with our critical thinking skills, and how we want to move forward. So I hope I didn't make it too scary. I hope I didn't make it too off putting. It's really not. I mean, it is work. It is a lot of work to put into being pagan and figuring out where you fit underneath the pagan umbrella and where you stand with your beliefs, because there's not uh what am I trying to say? Like, we don't have a Bible that lays everything out for us. We have to go and find them. We have to go find that information because it's historical, or it's in museums or online directories or lost. But we have to go through and do that work if we want to fulfill, I don't want to say proper, if we want to do it quote unquote the right way, where we're looking at like Irish paganism, for example, because I'm an Irish pagan. I don't want to take things from Wicca, for example, and bring them into my Irish paganism, because that's not right. So I need to be able to have those skills and the education or the support system, someone that I can go to and ask questions to find the correct information. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, and you're watching this later or you're listening to the podcast, please reach out to me. I will happily talk you through whatever questions you've got or any suggestions or other comments. And stick around for the bonus section. If you're not going to stick around for the bonus section, then I will see you next time. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, I'm going to go back and look at the chat. I'm going to open that window up here on my computer and just see if there's any questions or anything like that. But, oh, I missed some slides. Boo. Oh well. Well, here. I'll cover these now because I can edit it into the podcast later. But there are no qualifiers to being a pagan unless that particular branch of paganism has qualifiers. So that is another thing where doing your research and knowing what you're looking for has, it plays a big role. But examining your responses to these questions will help you decide the right answers for you and the right path for you, but ultimately that's a decision you have to make. Okay. Now I'm going to go back through the chat and now we can go into the bonus. Okay, I'm back. I think I accidentally pushed the button to stop streaming. I hope that didn't mess anything up for you. Okay, so I'm going to go through the chat. Now is a good time for me to remind you that if you are watching this live, hit that thumbs up button. Helps me out in the algorithm and all of that stuff. So yes, hi Renee. Hi Cloud. Hi Hillary. Flavia. Hello Megan. I'm finally able to watch the live. Yay, I'm glad that you're here. Renee says, I like the ferret making noises on the videos. She is a turd. It never fails that when I'm recording a video or recording any audio or anything like that, that she decides to roll around in her tube that makes noise. It never fails. It's adorable, but it's distracting. So, It doesn't look like I have any questions in the live chat. Um, Unless you want to pop in any questions now or any comments. Um, Also, since you're watching live, how do you feel about this format with the PowerPoint presentation thing that's here? Was it distracting? Was it helpful? Do you not care? Does it matter at all to you? I feel like it did help keep me on track and kept me from sort of going off on tangents and losing my train of thought. I was able to get all of the information out at one time without spacing, I guess. Hillary, I thought it was pretty cool. Okay, awesome. Was it helpful or did it just not matter? Renee said that they like it. Awesome. Sorry, I'm getting warm. I have to turn my fans off when I do this, otherwise, you get a bunch of noise into my microphone. Renee said, if it helps me stay on track, then it's helpful for you as well. Thank you. You're so sweet. You're like one of the sweetest people I've ever talked to. Oh, I might as well give a heads up. There is a tropical storm brewing somewhere, and it's supposed to make landfall in Florida between Saturday and Sunday. So, um, depending on what happens with that, I don't know what my live next week is going to look like. I'm hoping nothing happens. I'm hoping they don't upgrade it to a hurricane or anything like that. It would really be crappy if our first year down in Florida we got hit with a hurricane. But just giving you a heads up, the tropical storm is brewing, and I'll keep everyone updated on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook about what's happening with that, if anything does happen. Flavia, am I saying your name right? Flavia? I hope so. Says, it's just my first time watching a live version. I usually listen to the podcast and watching the video. I like that format. So you like the PowerPoint format? It doesn't, it's not distracting to you and it's helpful? The only bad part about lives is the latency. Um, yeah. So I guess we can call it good here then if no one has any questions. I don't really have anything else to say other than if you want to take part in the Lunasa live hangout, go ahead and put your email in the link below. Click the link below and put your email in. Awesome. Flavia says, yes, I'm saying it right. And the PowerPoint, you like the PowerPoint. Okay, cool. But yeah, if you want to take part in the Lunasa live hangout, click the link in the description and put your email in so that I can send you the invite. And yeah. Oh, if you want to have the option to vote for what we talk about next, you can join me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. The polling option is open to any tier, and you can help decide what we talk about in the live streams and the podcast episodes. So I guess we can end it here. Thank you all so much for joining me for the live. If you're watching later, thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.